Do I ever trigger the "Are we the bad guys" from your players? Sure, and sometimes very intentionally, right? So I don't. The only time that I've ever really tried to drive that home was when the party was unintentionally in service of a lich, and they had to uncover that the things that they were doing, that they were told when they were, rinky dink third level, fourth level, like they were told these things were good for the region. They had to figure out on their own that, like, actually, hey, I think this is this is a bunch of bullshit. Um, I think this is not good. And once they started questioning it, and they had puzzles that helped them figure it out too. In that case, I really wanted them to have that experience of like, okay, we are not the good guys. We haven't been the good guys for a little while, just because that was fun. I'm not a fan of, this may be too harsh. I'm not a fan of like moralizing the party. And it depends on the game. It depends on the vibe and the tone you're trying to set up. But like, sometimes you'll hear those ideas where it's like, oh, you just took out all those goblins, but then you find out like this was a goblin family. How could you? Like, I mean, I guess that, like I said, there's a time and place that some of the stuff can be effective, but for the most part, that just feels a bit like a buzzkill. Like, we all know that we're playing an adventure game. We all know that it's a lot more fun if there are bad guys somewhere that you get to stop from doing bad things. And sometimes they're just, you know, you just need evil little monsters that you can wipe out, because that's fun and entertaining. So yeah, I'm very careful to like turn that dial too far. Too far. I think that players will question themselves also sometimes, but it's tricky. I just don't like. I think I liken it to a lot of video games. Like if you play a game like Uncharted, or you know, The Last of Us, or any of these games that are heavily, or like, Grand Theft Auto games. Like there's a story that in some cases it's like hundreds of millions, more than a tentpole action movie. Like more time and energy goes into the script for like a new Grand Theft Auto game than goes into like probably 2 or 3 Mission Impossible movies back to back to back. But there's a cognitive dissonance when you're playing these games where you're like, okay, this is a real character and I'm supposed to care about their story. Meanwhile, in between chapters of their telling their story, we're just going to massacre untold numbers of people, right? Oh, they're bad guys. That was 100 bad guys. That was 100 people. Like, this person is deplorable and horrible. I think some of that dissonance is helpful to carry over into tabletop games, unless you're playing a very different game than any that I've ever run, because D&D and a lot of tabletop games are very combat focused. So there have to be a lot of things that you can destroy in the world to be an adventurer in most tabletop games. I think there are valid other ways to play, but I think most groups slip into that, like, okay, we can keep both things in our head. Like, these are good characters that we like and care about. Also, this game element is a bit out there. We're not going to hold our characters totally responsible for those adventurous actions, and I think that works for the most part. I think it's just one of those bullets you have to bite to some extent to make a game a little bit more fun. Dexter is chaotic good. I'll be honest, I'm not super in tune with ye old alignment charts. I don't personally use them in my games. I don't find them very, very helpful, to be honest. Yeah, I just think that it's very rare for people, like in their actual lives, to have any sort of like philosophical backing behind the choices that they make. It's a real tall order to ask them to apply that to the characters they're role playing. I find most of the time people are making decisions a little bit more on a whim, and trying to hold them to something is not fun. And should they even hold themselves to that? Is that fun? It just honestly hasn't really come up. I'm not sure I haven't seen it to be a useful tool for talking about character motivations yet. I could have my mind changed on that, but if you had to ask what alignment something is, just assume the Fae did it. True. The Fae can be responsible for so much nonsense. Blame the Fae. Pick your alignment, then it can shift over the course of the game. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I've yet to have a longtime player play a like a cleric or a paladin. And I can imagine if that or when that happens that I might think a little bit more about it, because it might matter more, like them sticking to some sort of an allegiance, some sort of a moral code. But so far, yeah, if my parties have moral codes, it's a self-described and extremely mutable idea that may change entirely from session to session. It's just how it goes.